The top of Widow's Hill is a strange and lonely place, and the great hulk of Collinwood sits like a sleeping monster on its crest. I know I should leave, and yet I can't. Not as long as I feel the answers I've been looking for might be here. Here in the darkness and the dust of hidden years, surrounded by the ghosts of the past and the fears of the present, I've decided to search and hope and wait. David, are you down here? David, are you in there? David, it's silly to hide. There's nothing to be frightened of.
I am back to talk about Dark Shadows, and we are talking about July of 1966. Now, when I recorded the first video for Dark Shadows, I was still trying to figure out how I was going to go about watching old soap operas and writing them, because I just really want to do this to find the best soap opera ever. And it's going to be unfair at times because there's just some soap operas and a lot of soap operas where the best years, well, the best years in quotation marks, you can't really go back and watch, like the 60s and 70s. So that's a problem, but we're still gonna get through it somehow. Now, I'm also recording this months and months in advance from when these will actually air. I'm recording this towards the end of 2021, and I'm recording this on a pretty rainy day, which is rare in Southern California, which is where I currently am. And it just seemed like a great day to binge some Dark Shadows so I could finish the rest of the month of July 1966. And I plan on watching every month of this show, Dark Shadows, because it is basically the only soap opera, I believe, that you can watch every year of, because there's only 5. But so I will be watching every year of Dark Shadows. I plan on it. Specifically now, you can watch on Amazon and IMDb TV. Hopefully it stays that way. So last time I barely reviewed the first 2 episodes of the show, and I talked about the tone of the show and how it was very different from other soap operas at the time because it was just very, very gothic. And we are still quite before it becomes, more supernatural and a certain vampire will arrive.
You've heard of Josette Collins?
No.
This is where she stood. Josette Collins, brought here from France as the bride of the man who built that house. And then one day, this is where she stood. And that's where she jumped.
How horrible.
So it's still pretty classic old soap opera right now, though, because we got someone being accused of trying to murder someone else, and it's being investigated.
And Burke Devlin's come back to Collinsport, and you ought to get that girl out of the house.
Burke can't do her any harm.
Maybe not, Liz. Maybe not. But when a man's set in prison as long as he did, and is filled with as much hate.
Burke went to prison because he committed a crime.
Did he?
Yes.
So I feel like the main stories are very classic soap opera right now for July 1966. Nothing too different compared to other soap operas. I want to talk about Dan Curtis, the creator of the show. He would go on to create more horror movies. So he's definitely one who enjoys his horror. And I feel like he's probably... I wish I knew the discussions at that time on network television, on ABC, where this aired, where soap operas at that time were just all for, or mostly for, the women staying home, love in the afternoon, love stories and all of that, maybe some social issues back then as well. The only real different soap opera from that from the norm was probably Edge of Night during that period as well. That was more of like a crime-based drama. So this being so gothic and also feeling a bit crime-based at this point in time, it's just so different than anything before it and mostly after it, until like Passions and Port Charles, I guess. But Port Charles didn't even start Supernatural, and Passions was kind of a joke. But you know, maybe I will watch Passions one day and have a change of heart. So I'm just wondering if Dan Curtis went into this telling the network and the network knowing just how supernatural the show would become, or if he intentionally like started it slow to slowly unravel the supernatural stories into the show. I think that's probably what happened, because I think we get a supernatural story by the end of this year. I had thought I watched the early year of the show, and I did watch a lot of it, but I think it was towards the end before Barnabas arrived, rather than these first few months I don't think I've ever seen before. And we get a lot of backstory that I never really realized. You know, Victoria coming from the orphanage, and money was sent to her in the orphanage every month, and she's wondering why.
Yes, I worked in a foundling home. And I lived there too, Carolyn, every year of my life. That's right. I'm one of those kids. You know what my family was? A cardboard box. And a piece of paper with 10 words written on it. Her name is Victoria. I cannot take care of her. I had to know.
Isn't it enough that you're here, that you're being paid for your...
Mrs. Stoddard, no one at the foundling home ever spoke to you or your brother.
Are you certain of that?
I told you I spoke to Miss Hopewell.
I know. Did it ever occur to you that she might be mistaken?
Well, she said she checked.
You were hired on a recommendation made to my brother, and for no other reason. There are many people connected with that foundling home, Miss Winters. Perhaps Miss Hopewell didn't contact all of them.
I suppose that's true.
Well, then I suggest we consider the matter ended. I really do want you to be happy here.
Mrs. Stoddard won't tell her the real reason why she's hired Victoria to come to Collinwood, and a lot of the first part of this month is Victoria snooping around the house, the mansion, and snooping around the town, and people in the town telling her not to stay here. And you know, there's a lot of mentions of ghosts, which I find funny, because you know, they're talking about ghosts in the terms of like people's past coming back to haunt them, while also kind of making it seem like they're talking about real ghosts, which I found funny and entertaining and very interesting for the show. So that's one of the main storylines, is Victoria really getting to immerse herself into Collinwood, and we learn a little about her past at the orphanage, and she's starting to take care of the problem child, David.
Why, David? Why did you do it?
I didn't.
But that's nonsense. It was on the tray right here. When I came in, it was on the floor, broken.
I didn't touch it.
Well, then who did?
They did. I was standing right over here, and the cup was on the tray, and I saw it move all by itself, and it fell on the floor, and it broke.
David, things don't happen that way.
They do here. Lots of things happen here. You still want to send me away, don't you?
All I want right now is to find my car keys.
Well, you're not going to. I won't let you do it.
We also got to meet the drunk Sam Evans, who is an artist and just a town drunk, and he's also connected to Burke Devlin's return to town and a past with Roger. So you see, 10 years ago, this is probably the main story of the month, is Burke coming back to town after going to prison for manslaughter, and Roger testified against Burke. And so Burke always promised revenge on Roger, and that has been really the main story, because Roger's car ends up getting messed with. And when Burke spent a lot of this month reconnecting with the Collins family.
You are my first guest, Miss Stoddard. Did you know that?
I thought you grew up in Collinsport.
I did.
Well, didn't you have any friends?
Did.
Mr. Devlin was kind enough to drive me here. The least we can do is ask him in for a drink.
Where did you meet Mr. Devlin?
In my hotel room.
Oh, it was all very proper, Mother. I called him on the house phone and invited myself up.
We've all lived with what happened to me. You, me, Roger. For 10 years, we've lived with it. And there's nothing I can do to him, or you, or anyone else, for that matter, that could add up to as much as the pain we've all lived with. How have you been?
How long has he been here?
Only a little while. I thought it would be wise if we talked things over.
We have a lot of catching up to do. 10 years worth.
If you try to do anything, to me, to my family, to any of us, those 5 years you spent in prison will seem like the best time you ever had.
Oh, hello, Miss Winters.
Couldn't imagine who was in here.
Well, we certainly have a habit of meeting in the odd places, don't we?
Yes?
I was just admiring Roger's car.
I see.
Oh, I found this on the front seat.
He met Carolyn, and we got to meet Carolyn's boyfriend, Joe, who proposed to Carolyn thinking he was making a deal on his own, becoming his own man, making a lot of money, only to find out Mrs. Stoddard set that whole plan into motion. So Joe's character is on the scene looking like someone trying to prove himself that he could take care of Carolyn by himself.
Mr. Malloy took me off the boats.
What do you mean?
You know, Mr. Malloy, the man that runs a fishing fleet for your mother?
Joe?
Huh? No sense of humor. Absolutely no sense of humor. I got a promotion, Carolyn. I'm going to be working in the fleet office from now on, a checker.
Joe, how wonderful!
Regular hours plus $25 more a week. What do you think of that?
And I do love you. I really do.
Then marry me. Sweetheart, I know I've asked you 4 dozen times.
Joe.
Carolyn, what's the matter? Why does this happen? Every single time.
Oh, let me help you with that.
Thank you.
Well, now that we are all here, how about my buying a cup of coffee?
Oh, I didn't think
Oh,
Carolyn
that's
and I...
very nice of you, Mr. Devlin. Matter of fact, why don't you join us?
Well, I don't want to be a fifth wheel.
Oh, that's all right. We just stopped in for a drink. Didn't we, Joe?
Yeah, sure.
Why don't you come to the movie with us?
Oh, Carolyn, for Pete's
Well,
sake!
it's early, isn't it? Why should Burke have to go back to the hotel room and spend the whole evening there by himself when he could come
Well, if
to
you're
a
that
movie?
worried about him, why don't you go up with him and keep him company?
Maybe that's just what I will do.
Lots of luck.
But after a night out with Carolyn, Carolyn brings Burke to to Collinwood to, reconnect with the family, talks with Miss Stoddard. They talk about the manslaughter that happened and Roger's testimony. And then Victoria ends up finding Burke in the garage by one of the cars. And Roger ends up getting in that car. The car ends up malfunctioning. Roger's in a car accident.
Did you mean what you said?
I'm in a hurry.
You said you wanted to send me away. Did you mean it?
David, go to bed.
He's going to die, Mother. He's going to die.
Hello. This is Mrs. Stoddard. What? Where did it happen? Is he all right?
He does not end up dying. Now, we get a lot of David, Roger's son, in this month as well, who is a very strange individual. He doesn't like that Victoria's there to take care of him. And he's a really big problem child. And they've alluded that David might have been the one to mess with the car a lot.
David, open this door.
Oh, all right, David. That was a bit cruel of me. Please accept my apology.
Do you know who did it?
David, I have no patience for this.
You were almost killed. Don't you think I have a right to know?
The only thing you have any right to know is that it's past your bedtime. Now get up to bed right now.
You don't even care if I am sorry.
Just go to bed and leave me alone. That's all I care about.
Well, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not sorry at all. Maybe I wish you'd...
Well, that didn't take long.
Well, not much to see except this. Hello, young fellow. What's your name?
Well, how long did he think it'd take? What else did he say? Well, that's all I can expect. Yes, we'll have something. We've got something here, a wrench with some prints on it.
David, don't touch it.
How wild the idea may seem.
David!
Don't touch!
I knocked it over by mistake.
David, you stupid!
It's all right. He didn't know.
But he's got fingerprints all over it now.
Here, David. Well, I better be going.
At one point when Roger took the car out, David was worried Roger's going to die, and then Roger ends up in an accident. So it seems as though David was probably the one to mess with the car. David having this really bad relationship with his father, Roger. But Roger's convinced it's Burke because of that history and because Burke promised revenge on him after he testified against him in court 10 years ago. And Roger involves the police, and now the police are investigating Burke for this. So I mean, all in all, that was the main story of the month. It started out still very intriguing, but as the month went on, it got a little more tiring. You know, I think I don't know if I've said before, but I'm pretty sure on some of my soap opera videos in modern times, I've talked about how 60s and 70s soap opera kind of moves too slow for me, honestly. It does. Like, unless it's a really engrossing story, it's probably going to be too slow for my liking. Now, I'm still enjoying Dark Shadows, don't get me wrong. And I think the story is pretty good. I think they've done a really good job introducing Burke as this mysterious man who's might want revenge. And I'm really interested to see where they go with Victoria because, you know, Roger was trying to get Miss Stoddard to tell him why the reasons that she hired Victoria to work for them, and she won't do it. So I'm wondering if we really get to learn more about Victoria's past, because I feel like when that certain vampire arrives, most of these characters fall to the wayside, and that's the main story for the rest of the series, which is kind of disappointing. I think I'm going to have some controversial, unpopular opinions when Barnabas first arrives on the scene. But for now, you know, I'm enjoying the backstories we're getting. It could be some of the episodes are boring, but for the most part, it's intriguing enough. I want to see where they go in August and see if they move the story along a little quicker at least. But for now, I gave the month of July 1966 a grade of a 77. So combined with the last month 78, it gives an average score for 77.5. And what I plan on doing is watching whatever soap operas I can going through each month or going through months that I am able to watch, giving it a grade, giving it an average. And eventually we're going to have a lot of soap operas in this list to truly find the best soap opera of all time. Something I've always wanted to do. I wish there was more soap operas to watch. With all these streaming services, how do they not try to get old soap operas on their streaming service? I get it, it's probably music and copyrighted music, and how much money that would cost. It's so annoying. The music industry gets on my nerves. But I still think there's ways they can work around it. They have the editing capabilities, and they just need to invest time into putting old classic soap opera episodes up on these streaming services. It's annoying. But for now, I will keep watching Dark Shadows. I think at some point, the next soap opera I'll either be able to check out is either Coronation Street or The Doctors. I know there's a streaming site for The Doctors. I don't know how to use it or how to sign up to buy the streaming. So I hope I can figure that out and eventually check out The Doctors. But I think, I don't remember what year they have to start The Doctors. It's like 67 or 68. And we're in 66. So, and there's old Coronation Street episodes up on YouTube and other sites that I hope to find so I could start watching old Coronation Street. So one of those two soap operas will probably be next, but for now I'm going to keep watching Dark Shadows. I am enjoying it. It's not, like, clearly I'm giving it like high C's, C pluses grades, so it's could be better obviously, but it's still intriguing enough. I hope it stays intriguing enough and doesn't get too boring where the grade might keep falling, because it did go to a 78 to 77 for me. But it's kind of not fair because in June, Dark Shadows only had a few episodes. This was a full month. But yeah, I enjoy this trip down memory lane to soap operas. I've always been a big soap opera fan, and I hope you will start checking out these videos, because this will probably be a long but interesting journey.